welcome to Pittsburgh. Again, big offseason for the Steelers. New quarterbacks are in the door. Kenny Pickett's out. Mr. Trubisky out. They insert Justin Fields. They bring in Russell Wilson. The wide receiver position is probably the biggest question mark when you look at this offense. George Pickens is clearly the number one guy now, established number one receiver. They trade away Deontay Johnson, bring in Dante Jackson to replace burnt toast Levi Wallace. So it's going to be an interesting season for the Steelers. Clearly, all the quarterback controversy is kind of where this team is starting off at. So thankfully, you can back this out and give me the offense, gents, and bring you all back in here because right now we've seen a lot of Justin Fields so far in Pittsburgh with
I got you, Cole.
Russell Wilson. Thank you. Thanks, Coach. Let me cook. So, speaking of cooking, Russell Wilson cooking, let Russ cook. He's been hurt starting off camp with a calf injury. They're slowly bringing in the old man back into the swing of things in Pittsburgh. So they have not committed to playing him next week. So it could be Justin Fields again taking advantage of all these snaps. But the Steelers went into this offseason, get new quarterbacks, which Omar Khan has done and a great job. And second was buffing up the offensive line. So they draft Troy Fautanu out of Washington in the first round that fell to their lap. And they draft Zach Frazier in the second round, center out of West Virginia, who is, again, one of the top two centers behind Jackson Powers out of Oregon in the draft. The fact that the Steelers got one of the better tackles in the draft and they got one of the better centers in the draft without trading up or doing anything, I think Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin had themselves a heck of a draft in the offseason. So, again, they draft Roman Wilson in the third round out of Michigan. They bring in Cordero Patterson, which was really interesting because they literally did that as the new rule change came out on returns. So you bring in one of the better return guys in the game in Cordero Patterson. I think the Steelers offense is definitely there in a really good spot to make some noise. And if they get halfway decent quarterback play, I think the Steelers are one of the better teams in football. I'm not going to mention Brandon Ayuk. I've lost my marbles the last 2 weeks hearing about this guy. So for me, he's a San Francisco 49er. He's going to be a San Francisco 49er. He's playing games. I'm not interested in it. I want it to be over with. But if the Steelers somehow get him, I think the Steelers are a legitimate top two team to compete in the AFC when you look at their roster. So, I mean, we're just looking at the offense right now. Wait till we get to the defense. If they somehow pair Ayuk with George Pickens and Freiermuth and Jalen Warren and Najee Harris with a top 15 offensive line, I think the Steelers are going to be in a really, really good place to succeed and, be a big problem for teams. Gents, the floor is yours. What are your thoughts outside of the biased Steeler fan here?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to make a
No, wait. Can I go first? I don't want you to steal my thunder.
Okay, talk. Hey.
I think us skipping over the obvious fact that running back number one after week 4 is clearly going to be Cordero Patterson is a mistake.
He was number one on the depth chart going into the Texans game in the preseason.
That's what I'm saying. So don't forget about him. He's a dynamic player, and Falcons brought him in as a running back. He became a wide receiver and running back and tight end and everything else, and he was fantastic. So there you go. I mean, quietly though, bringing a guy like that in is not bad. That's pretty cool. And then aside from, I actually really like the receivers that they've added, and I like how this team is built at this moment. So, if you can get a little bit more out of Najee Harris, and we see Najee Harris for once, I feel like that would be cool. But I feel like this is an offense that could thrive, honestly. I will say, as long as, like you said, Colton, quarterback play is good, or at least slightly above average, I think this is a successful team. Or successful, at least off-season, going into a season and everything. So I like the team.
Here's my question. Who does Colton think gives him the best chance to win between Wilson and Fields?
That's a good question.
I got to see Russ on the field. So I got to see how he looks with Pickens and these guys and Van Jefferson. So, I mean, if we had the same numbers that Russ put up in Denver last season, the Steelers are probably winning the division with all the injuries last year. To be honest, he had, 26 touchdowns and 8 picks? If the Steelers had those numbers, the Steelers probably win the division last season. So, and the fact that they had, I think, 13 total from their quarterbacks, that's quite disgusting. So, I just want the best quarterback. Trust me, as far as future-wise, I've said this to a lot of Steeler guys. being a part of Steeler Nation. Trust me, I want to see Justin Fields. I'm not stupid here. I prefer to see Justin Fields. Younger guy, he's future. He's younger than Kenny Pickett. That's what I'd rather see. But the same token, if Russ gives them the best chance to win, he's going to give the best quarterback play. I want Russ, man. I'm so tired of mediocre quarterback play since like the tail end of Ben. I just want good quarterback play because the roster is good. And not to take a shot, Dom, but the only thing that scares me on this roster is the wideouts. Like I like Van Jefferson. He's kind of had the Antonio Brown mindset out of camp so far. After camp, him and Calvin Austin are out there catching 300 balls. So Van Jefferson came in like talking with the wide receiver coaches. What did Antonio Brown do that made him so successful? And they talked to him. It was like, yo, he's catching 300 balls after practice. And again, is it going to be Antonio Brown? Absolutely not. Antonio Brown was in a league of his own, had probably one of the best stretches in NFL history in a 5-year span. But no, just the fact that Van Jefferson's putting the work in, I'm really glad about that. But the problem is I don't like Van Jefferson being my number 2 wide receiver. Then Roman Wilson gets hurt before the first preseason game. He's out a few weeks with an ankle injury. So the fact that you're not getting Roman Wilson playing time, and the Steelers weren't going to throttle him in anyway. But the wide receiver position is really worrisome for me. Not saying George Pickens can't do it. I know what George Pickens is. He's very good. You throw the ball up to him, it's probably a 50-50 ball. No, it's probably like 75-25 for George Pickens. So I just don't like the other receiver option where if they bring in Brandon Ayuk, I'm totally different. I'm going to be talking a lot of smack regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers because the wide receiver group goes from probably, I don't know, around 20 wide receiver core to instantly a top 5 receiving core with Pickens and Ayuk as your 1-2 punch. I mean, that's just have fun guarding it, then Freiermuth over the middle. Like this is going to be a team if they somehow, if Omar Khan pulls off Brandon Ayuk, somehow pulls it out of his rear end. This is a legitimate super contending team. So right now, I think they make the playoffs. They're probably in the middle of the road of the AFC North, which is fine. You can make the playoffs in it with 9-10 wins. I think that's where Pittsburgh is at now. If they were somehow to throw in a Brandon Ayuk, I think they're legitimate contenders in the AFC, not just the AFC North, especially when you take a look at this defense.
Yeah, you took my question away because I was going to be like the drop off from George Pickens is kind of staggering because Roman Wilson, yes. He's not getting those practice reps right now, especially as a rookie. So that's going to be you don't know if he's going to be ready for week 1 because I know all ankle injuries are going to be different. But I do like Quez Watkins up there, and I think maybe Scotty Miller can.
I don't like Quez Watkins. After the first preseason game, cut his ass. Dude just fumbled every ball possible. Goodbye.
I only like him for the speed portion. So, like, if Patterson,
well, he got to catch the ball. So, I mean, the thing is on his resume. The problem is on his resume, it's not catching balls. That's the problem on his resume.
He was the one that fumbled in the Washington game.
Yes.
Before we even got started, I was going to make a joke and says like, we're all positive here. Quez Watkins is not making the roster, right?
That's funny.
Quez Watkins is a guy who never uses the skills that he has and fumbles every chance he gets.
But no, Will, you're 2,000% correct. Like there's a huge drop off.
I know. I don't want to put Ayuk into the air because he's not a Steeler.
No, I'm talking at this rate. Like after our text messages yesterday, I'm like, oh my god, he's a Steeler. And then it's like, oh no, he's just leveraging and probably just wants to get a deal done in San Francisco. So, and I don't blame him. I'd rather be in San Francisco. But like, stop playing this game. Like, just show up and take the number. If San Fran's gonna be tight on it, like, bro, they're gonna have to pay Brock Purdy. Stop being stupid to sign the damn contract.
And then I was going to also mention tight end 3. I mean, it's really going to be a battle between Connor Hayward if he's going to be playing fullback this year or not, and then Michael Pruitt. I think it's going to come down to Arthur Smith. Does he want to keep Michael Pruitt because he's been with him from like Tennessee and the Atlanta days? Is that what's going to be? Because Darnell Washington's going to be your tight end 2. Freiermuth's your tight end 1. That's the only other thing I have to say on that.
Is that why Cordero Patterson's on this team?
Yeah, well, that has to have at least somewhat of a saying on that too.
That makes sense.
I think it was what I mentioned earlier. I think it's the return game. I think the return game could possibly be like huge with this new setup. They have kickoffs. Like literally, as soon as they announced the new rule change, they saw like Cordero Patterson was announced like right after the rule was changed for kickoff. So I think he's going to be the big. He could be that extra wideout type deal. They might use him out wide as kind of like a mismatch thing. He's been hurt at the start of camp, too. I think he's finally getting onto the field in the next day or two. So haven't even seen Cordero Patterson. in a Pittsburgh uniform yet. So, again, there's a lot to look forward to, and the big one is quarterback play. What are you getting from Russ? What are you getting from Justin? So hopefully we see Russ this week against Buffalo and go from there.
Defense?
Let's shift to the defense here.
Bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your typical
Forget
AFC North
about
football, man. It's your typical AFC North football. You have two of the best, probably the best edge rusher tandem in football, and Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. You know what you're getting from those two guys. Larry Ogunjobi, they signed a few years back from Cleveland and Cincinnati, who's been a good cornerstone piece up front there with Cam Hayward, Walter Payton Man of the Year. And Keanu Benton, I think, is one of those underrated nose tackle guys up front. Kind of reminds me of Javon Hargrave when they first drafted him out of South Carolina State before he left in a free agent contract to go to Philly. So I think Keanu Benton is a really good player that they drafted last year to Wisconsin. In the big offseason acquisition, I am very pumped about it, and that would be the man from Baltimore. That'd be Patrick Queen, who got himself a nice, hefty contract. The Steelers have been missing that middle linebacker for years now since Ryan Shazier. They put Cole Holcomb in last year. He ends up blowing his knee out, I think, like week 4 or 5 at the game. It was at the Tennessee game. So I'm trying to remember what game it was. Anyway, he blew his knee out. And Landon Roberts got hurt later in the season. So they're throwing in guys like Mark Robinson, and they needed security, safety in the middle of the field. And they got in Patrick Queen. That's a do-it-all type of guy. So I'm pumped for him coming to Pittsburgh. Dante Jackson has had a really good camp so far, which was to trade with Deontay Johnson in Carolina. So that was kind of like a talking piece. It was like, oh, he wasn't that good for Carolina last year. And, again, some of the guys that have been at camp the first, 10 days, I called him like, yo, what are you giving me, Brandon? What are you giving me? What's been your surprise? He goes, Dante Jackson has been my surprise. He's had his share of getting cooked by Pickens, which everyone's going to have their moments of getting cooked by Pickens. He's one of the best wideouts in the game. But he goes, dude, he's definitely had his number. Like, he's been very good. I'm like, holy cow, the fact that you have Joey Porter Jr. that you drafted last year out of Penn State and how good he was his rookie season. To then have Dante Jackson on the other side, I'm like, oh, my God, no more burnt toast, Levi Wallace. So I'm super pumped for this defense. You know what you're getting from Minka. Deshaun Elliott, I think, is another underrated pickup that they got in the offseason. So, and my big shout-out onto this defense before I stop rambling on here is Peyton Wilson. I think that might be the steal of the draft, not just Pittsburgh-wise, like their big pick. I think the whole NFL as a whole, the fact the Steelers got Peyton Wilson is bonkers to me. It was kind of linked that they liked him. The fact that the guy has no knees, but if you watch him play football, that dude is a legitimate, like Luke Kuechly guy, see ball, get ball type of linebacker. So. And he showed it in the first preseason game. He was all over the field, had the first tackle on the kickoff, had the first tackle in the first defensive possession against C.J. Stroud and those guys. That might be one of the biggest picks in the draft is Peyton Wilson. So, gents, pick apart my sucking of the Steelers defense. I know there's holes at places you're going to pick. I don't care. This is a legitimate AFC North defense.
I was going to say, like, the only hole I know is the middle linebacker spot because, like, again, you went from Lawrence Timmons, who was a stud for all those years in Pittsburgh. You go to Shazier, who had that unfortunate neck injury, spinal cord injury, where he's not playing again. They've been really trying to fill that void for the last, 7 years now? It's been a very long time, and they've just not been successful.
One from Devin Bush, John Bostic, you name the Band-Aids they put over it, and they did it with Bush, drafted him high, and he just sadly blew his knee out, and he was never the same player.
I think with the four that they have here with Queen, Roberts, Peyton Wilson, or Holcomb, I think one of these guys are eventually going to stick to the wall, and you're like, okay, hey, we finally have at least half of our middle linebackers filled in. Didn't they have Miles Jack for like a brief stint too?
Yes.
I know it's been like up and down. That's been like kind of like the crucial thing. You just need, your guy who could call out all the plays and stuff, who could read the field. And I hope Queen can do it because I know he's going to have a fire under his ass after Baltimore kind of traded for Roquan Smith and was like, you know what? Okay, hey, we signed him to a big deal. They kind of told him kick rocks, get out of here. He's going to have that fire under his ass where he's going to try to.
He got paid. One of the best middle linebackers in the game. So I was losing my marbles when they got Patrick Queen. Like, holy God, they actually got a legitimate middle of the field linebacker. So the fact they got him, I'm pumped about it. And then Cole Holcomb was actually good for them before he blew his knee out. So, like, you can slowly bring him back in. He doesn't have to rush back in after his ACL injury. So, and you got Peyton Wilson there along with Landon Roberts, who's, a good run stopper. So, I'm pumped about this defense. It's a legitimate AFC North defense. And I think they're, go set the tone. I mean, what gets paid in this league is edge rushers. And you have two of the best in Highsmith and probably top 2 guy in TJ Watt. I mean, fun with that.
I actually really like this defense. I really do. And Dante Jackson, I don't know if you remember this picture from a couple years ago. This is what always stood out to me, is that dude can jump over like an 18-wheeler. Dude can literally there's a picture of him jumping and intercepting the ball, and it was like you could fit absolutely another one of him under him, and it was insane. So, I mean, like, the dude is an absolute baller. He's super athletic. I really like that signing or trade and whatever. But I just think this is a pretty solid team. Like, you look at all these starters right down the line, I'd be very happy with it.
See, I think I was going to piggyback off that. My one issue, which is my continuing issue with the Steelers and their defense, which healthy, they're unreal.
Yeah.
The depth is always a question after your 2 edge rushers. You always have the 2 edge rushers who are just studs. If one gets hurt, then you don't really fill it that well.
Well, I guess
I would say I beg to differ. Nick Herbig is a rookie last year, and he was really raw, and I think 5 or 6 sacks. So, and that was a guy taken like the 4th round, where you had a lot of those top end edge rushers, and they did not nearly have the same amount of numbers for a guy that's playing maybe 10 snaps, 15 snaps a game. So I hear it. They brought back what's his name, and then he retired. They brought back Marcus Golden, who was there last year. I think he had like 4 or 5 sacks, and he was a free agent, signed with the Steelers, and then retired like the next day. So I like Nick Herbig. I get what your point is. TJ goes down, Highsmith goes down. I like Herbig a lot, and so do the Steelers. So
I think I saw that was taken. Both Nate and Nick Herbig.
That is correct. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, this team is obsessed with brothers. Just in case you're wondering, this is a big family-oriented organization.
Football's a brothership, man.
Well, I mean, you got Joey Porter. You got Joey Porter you drafted last year. Clearly, his pops. One of the best edge rushers to do it in Pittsburgh, and you got Hayward. You have Cam Hayward. So I think Dom mentioned earlier what they're doing with. It was Will that mentioned what they're going to do with Connor Hayward. There's no freaking way that dude gets cut. He's definitely staying in Pittsburgh with Cam Hayward there. There's no way.
Yeah, I mean, this is an AFC North defense. DeMonte Casey, that's half the identity right there. So, yeah, they'll injure all the Patriots.
All they need is Kareem Jackson, and then they're really AFC North defense.
Yeah. Wait, isn't he on a team in this division?
No, I think he's on Buffalo or something.
No, you're right.
Give me the schedule, boys.
Let's look at the schedule here. Hey, we can read it, so that's a good thing. Yellow, gold, whatever you want to look at it. Yeah, that's home, and then the white's away. Oh no. Something's definitely.
Yeah, they start off. It's away. They start off the season on the road.
I forgot. The Steelers, for some reason, every couple of years, they always play Week 3 as their home opener.
Yeah, they don't like giving the Steelers home openers. I think last year was the first home opener.
I wonder if the schedule
that was
people.
15 years.
I wonder if the schedule people really think the Pirates are going to be good. That's why they don't give them a home game or very early in the season.
It still doesn't make any sense because you have the Phillies and the Eagles playing. I mean, you probably name every sports team, they all play in the same vicinity. So it makes zero sense at all, but they just don't like giving the Steelers an opener. So
the funny thing is they always make the Flyers open on a road trip
in Canada, West Coast.
Phillies and Eagles.
I thought it was the state fair or something that goes on or whatever.
Or the carnival thing.
There's always a bunch of. There's always a reason. If the Flyers were good, they would start them at home.
The week 1 matchup's kind of crazy though. That's a crazy week 1 matchup for the Steelers because it's like, what are you going to get in the Falcons? Period. We have no clue. Not to mention Arthur Smith, and then it's just like, boom, here we are, Falcons in Atlanta right away. That's a tough one.
And then week 2 you go to Denver, and that's kind of when I think they had Denver early in the schedule for Russell Wilson probably to play that game. So
Yeah, they're just like, hey, let's take the people on our revenge tour and see if they could do it.
It's a tough schedule. It's a tough schedule. So I mean, like I said, if they can somehow get Brandon Ayuk, they go from a 9-win team, 10-win team to 11, 12-win team. I think it pushes them to another level. Right now, I think they're a 9-win team when you look at the schedule. I mean, you could probably go 3-3 for every team in this division as far as division wins. They're going to split with this team most likely is how it usually goes. You don't know what you're getting from Atlanta. Denver's really not good. What is Justin Herbert week 3 in the season with his injury? Anthony Richardson is still technically a rookie pretty much coming out week 4. So they have to get it done early because that back end of the schedule is absolutely brutal. Starting December, holy God. Actually, starting November 17th, holy cow, NFL. What did you do this to me for? As soon as I saw the schedule, I'm like, dude, what is this shit?
After the bye week is awful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, all right, sure, Washington, that's whatever.
You go to that Washington game, you're going to travel with the Berg?
That's the game I have.
That's an easy drive. I'm just saying, okay, you're going to be like, wow, MetLife is like pennies on the dollar compared to this place.
Yeah, 2 dumps.
You have the Ravens and then a short week travel to the Browns for Thanksgiving.
Oh, it's a brutal. It is a brutal back end of the schedule. They definitely said, "Hey, Pittsburgh, shove it. Good luck to you."
And then forget about that short week where you are on the road at Baltimore. Then you're home on Christmas Day on a Wednesday against the Chiefs.
You have division, Eagles division, Chiefs. Kansas City division. Like what, bro?
Yes, this is one of the most disgusting schedules. Like this is the worst schedule you'll see in football. Like the back end of the schedule, good luck to you if you win a game type of deal.
I actually don't think you're being biased at all in saying that. Because having 4 straight division games and then Eagles, and then right back to the hardest division matchup you're going to have, and then Kansas City, and then potentially a game that could matter and make everything on your season. That's crazy,
That could come down to the Steelers making the playoffs or the Bengals for 1 seed / playoffs, depending on how crazy shit gets.
This is that blows. It blows. I mean, if you don't make playoffs, I could be so okay with you saying I blame everything Sunday.
I would blame the schedule. Like, come on, the schedule was at least a little mixed up. Like,
that's the beginning of this schedule is very, very important for Pittsburgh. They got to deliver early on in the season. That's what it comes to.
You don't have a divisional matchup until that Ravens game. That's crazy.
Yeah, you really got to be as close to undefeated before the bye as possible.
Yeah. How do you not have a division matchup before that Ravens game?
NFL hates the Steelers. I don't know. I've always said this that the NFL doesn't like Pittsburgh, but like people argue, "Oh, you get all these calls." No, we did. No. This is a clear showing that they shove it up Pittsburgh.
That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I feel like everyone says that about their team.
No, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
What's that?
I feel like every fan says that about their team, like, "Oh, the NFL or all the NHL hates my team," or all the NFL, and it's like whatever.
It's the Steelers. Like, come on. That's like saying the NFL hates the Packers or Cowboys.
Do you see this schedule? This is clearly not wanting to have. This is clearly not wanting to have one of your premier franchises still technically in it. If the Steelers struggle early on, like if the quarterback plays bad, they're fucked. Excuse my French. I don't even care. They're fucked.
I mean, there's no other else way
You're not keeping one of your premier franchises in the mix with that schedule, Jake. I'm sorry. So they're shoving up Pittsburgh's
last year? Did you see it?
Yeah, you had a first place schedule. That's what happens. This is just AFC North. Go shove it up your ass schedule. And here, we'll throw Kansas City on for you for Christmas. And we'll send you to Philly too. Like, what the hell are you? This is a brutal. You will not ever. Literally, we'll probably look at the last 10-year schedules worth of random teams. You name the freaking team. You will not see a worse schedule than this. You will not. You will not find a worse, like, eight game stretch than this schedule. You will not. You will not. I will give you $10 if you find me a schedule worse than this.
I mean, I will say, no matter if that's true or not, I would probably say this is the worst. At least 8.
It's not an excuse.
This year.
It's not an excuse. It just makes everything in the beginning of the season you always hate to hear dumb comments like, "Oh, must win." No, they have to have a really good start to the season going into the bye. They have to. They have to have 2 losses or less. That's their max. 2 losses is their max going into that bye. Has to be. But enough with Pittsburgh. They're around 9-10 wins. If they somehow pull Ayuk out of their ass, jump me from 11 to 12. You have 2 legitimate wideouts. Right now, they're 9-10 wins.